Hello everyone, welcome to the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture. I'm of course your host TJ, coming before you today to talk about Fault Lines by Nora Carpenter. Now before I get into the review proper, I do have to do a little bit of a full disclosure. I do know Nora very well. We actually went to the same high school, Cameron High School in Cameron, West Virginia. Her mom was my English teacher. We also went to the same undergrad, Marshall University in Huntington. So I'm pleased as punch to finally get a chance to read and review this book. It's been on my TBR for a while, but I just now got around to it, and I wanted, of course, to sing its praises, not just because I know Nora, but because it is a fantastic piece of young adult Appalachian literature that I think should be required reading for a number of reasons. Now, the story focuses on Viv and Dev. Viv is a young sort of activist and environmentalist, adamantly opposed to fracking. Dex, on the other hand, is a recent transplant to the city, or the small town in which the story takes place. His mother is a veteran. She's recently got a job with the fracking company, and so this kind of puts them on a collision course. It is a bit of an enemies to lovers dynamic, but they sort of find a way of, encountering one another and finding love. And I think that's really special, and it's a good message, I think, in the present moment. Now, of course, adding into the complexity of all this is Dex's really conflicted relationship with his class identity, because he is very much truly like the poor, like the working poor, not just poor in the generic way. Whereas Viv has this energy sensing ability that enables her to be in touch with trees and the sort of life force of the earth. So of course, there's a little bit of fantasticalness going on in there, but it's really the relationship between Dev and Viv that is the heart and soul of this book, and I think really speaks to, the conflicts and angst of youth. And I love we get these alternating perspectives between these two characters who come from very different walks of life. Viv, for all that she is, on a small, lives in on the outskirts of a small town out in the country and doesn't have a lot of money, there's still a stability there, whereas Dex is very much like his whole subjectivity, his way of looking at the world is shaped, and I would argue in some ways misshaped, by the fact that he's been so deeply poor for so long. And I think that Carpenter, or Nora, gets into some really interesting territory when it comes to grappling with the many sort of conflicting and complicated and complex dynamics at work with fossil fuel extraction in a place like West Virginia. Because while it's easy for Viv to be so absolutist in her perspective, for Dex, obviously it's different, because he, this new job with the pipeline is what gives his mother the ability to sort of give them a life that isn't just scraping by paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes not even scraping by. So I think that that's one of the very valuable things about the book, is the extent to which it really does capture some of the really fraught dynamics that are currently playing out in West Virginia and Appalachia more generally, but very specifically West Virginia, which is disproportionately reliant on fossil fuel extraction as a sort of basis for its economy. There's not really a diverse economy in West Virginia, unfortunately. And so I think that, it's very easy for people like Viv, and even like myself and others, who grew up there, to be so dynamic and so insistent that there's only one moral choice to be made. But, it's not as easy as they would like it to say. Now, I do also give, Nora a lot of credit. She brings in all kinds of other diverse perspectives into the novel, although it's, just from these two characters' point of view. We also have Viv's best friend, Maeve. We have who is biracial. We also have Dex's friend, who is bisexual. So, I really appreciate that she kind of gets into the nitty-gritty of small-town life, and how actually some people it's a surprisingly diverse world. And there's more than a little bit of, I think, of our hometown of Cameron, and that's in this book. There were certain things that I was like, oh yes, that is definitely drawing on it. And this, I love that aspect of it. I love feeling like I know a place. And not just because I'm familiar with the milieu that she's describing, but I think that Nora is very effective at drawing out like the minutia and the tides, or the rhythms of life in small town Appalachia and West Virginia in particular. And so I really enjoyed it. I don't read a lot of young adult fiction, but I really appreciated that she was giving this voice to these young people and sort of showing how these big issues that affect adults also affect teenagers in various ways. And I also appreciate that, like much as I do in my own work, I like my novel Country Road Romance, but also some of the stuff I'm working on now with fiction is that, we can use the conventions of young adult romance, for example, or just adult romance to grapple with bigger issues. That it isn't just escapism, but in fact, we can talk about, two people coming from very different perspectives, who, as far as like, say, fracking, and use their love and their romance to sort of grapple with and engage with and dive into all of these other really potent and important themes and subjects that are very much germane to everyday life in West Virginia and Appalachia more generally. So really appreciate that Nora was able to do that while also giving us characters that I really enjoyed. Wanted to strangle sometimes, but I think that that's the mark of a complicated character, is that you love them and also sometimes get frustrated with them, just as we love and also get frustrated with the people in our own lives. So I think that this book is extraordinary. It is a lovely read. It gets my full-throated Pisces Guide to Pop Culture seal of approval. Once again, not just because I know Nora, although that helps, but also because I just think it's really fantastic, and I love seeing West Virginia represented. That is not reductive, or that isn't simplistic, but really kind of, gives us something to think about lots of things to think about, actually, when it comes to West Virginia and the issues and the struggles that it faces going forward. So anyway, once again, that is Fault Lines by Nora Carpenter, an excellent, excellent book that I cannot recommend highly enough. So do go out and buy it, because it is a real it's a real fun read and very important one, showing what life is like in West Virginia. So, as always, for the Pisces Guide to Pop Culture, I'm your host, TJ, and that's all I have for today. So, as always, I just have to say, take care, y'all.